Good morning. Welcome back to COVID Science Water Unit. Today our big question is, what is water quality and how can it be affected? I know sometimes you think places with lots of water have lots of water to drink. Well, that's not always the case. Being surrounded by water isn't always necessarily a good thing. We're going to look at that first. Quick review of what we talked about yesterday. 5 main ideas from yesterday. We looked at, yes, 97% of the water around the world is salt water. Only 3% of it's fresh water. 77% of that fresh water is locked in ice. Only 1% of it is drinkable, or we called that potable. There's some main ideas from yesterday. Going to move on. I'm going to introduce you to some reasons that you can't necessarily always drink fresh water, even if it looks really good. Cryptosporidium parvum. That is a bacteria that lives in water that's going to make you really sick. This is Giardia lamblia, causes beaver fever. It will also make you very sorry that you drank the fresh water. Now, there are solutions to that, pardon the pun. There are solutions to that problem that we'll look at towards the end of this section. Quick trip back in history, 2005. You may have heard of Hurricane Katrina. So what we're looking at is the Gulf of Mexico right here. And these would be the southern states, with Louisiana right on the southern border of the United States, and a massive hurricane moving towards the states. This is the city of New Orleans in Louisiana. And what happens is that lots of New Orleans is stuck between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain. And it's these levees or walls that keep the water out of the city. But what happens when the hurricane struck is those walls broke down, the city flooded. This is looking at New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina was done, battering the walls and bringing the ocean into the city. Well, these people are surrounded by water but dying of thirst. For a lot of reasons, you can imagine why that water would be unsafe to drink. Yes, it's mostly salt water. Basically, the ocean took over the city, so it's salt water. But then imagine, too, I'm not sure if you've ever come home from vacation and realized actually your freezer's broken and all the meat in your freezer is rotting and that stink is unbelievable. Well, multiply that by, a billion. Because all of the food in all of these homes is floating up and down the street and rotting and dead, and so are some people. So yeah, the water would certainly be contaminated and unsafe to drink, and you could be standing on your roof surrounded by water and dying of thirst. So what we're going to look at today is, what does water quality mean? What are some factors that indicate water quality? Here's the answer. Now again, I have the questions you're going to see on forms tomorrow. Those are up over here, so you might want to make just a couple of notes, or even just jot down the time in the video. It's 3:38, where I brought up the video or the image for water quality. It describes how pure the water is. Here are some ways that we describe water quality. We can talk about salinity, dissolved materials, or hard water. Number of organisms in the water, like Cryptosporidium parvum and Giardia lamblia. Organisms, acidity, cloudiness, or turbidity. We'll look at those one at a time. Definition for salinity: the amount of dissolved salts in the water. Seawater has a very high salinity since there are more dissolved salts, whereas most fresh water has much lower salinity. So again, we did talk in our diffusion and osmosis section how science can save your life. If you drink salt water, you'll dehydrate faster than if you drink nothing at all. So we're limited to drinking fresh water. Dissolved minerals can affect water quality. Hard water is a condition where the minerals calcium and magnesium, for the most part, are dissolved in water. Now, hard water can cause a couple things. One, it can cause damage in your pipes as that water heats up and cools down and leaves sediment behind. You may have seen something like this inside your water kettle or your coffee maker or your shower head that gets calcium um, precipitated on the pipes or fixtures that carry the water flying through this. You can tell if you have hard water. Sometimes you might have been on a road trip where you step into the shower and try to use the soap, and somehow it seems like the soap doesn't work. You're not getting bubbles, and you might not blame the soap. Although, in one case in our home, you might blame the soap. Caleb, my 14-year-old, hard to imagine, was bored on a COVID Tuesday, and so he spent an hour carving a potato to look like a bar of soap, and he left that potato in the shower for his older brother Nate. And Nate came home from a hard day of work. He was filthy, dirty, and super stinky, and jumped into the shower and was very frustrated that the soap wasn't working. Well, it's because he tried to shower with a potato. But even if you're not trying to lather up a potato, soap test for hard water can sometimes tell you if you've got lots of this calcium and magnesium dissolved in your water. If you get lots of bubbles, you've got soft water. In other words, not a lot, not very much calcium. But if sometimes the soap just doesn't work, either it's a potato or you have hard water, lots of calcium and magnesium dissolved in the water. Just so I could use words for C for the first three, for as many of these characteristics as possible. Organisms or critters. Fresh waters, some contain organisms and other organic living materials. Some are harmful, others are not. Usually water treatment processes prevent organisms like E. coli from getting into the water. This is what E. coli looks like, and you may have heard of a town called Walkerton, Ontario. And the only reason you'd possibly know about a town called Walkerton, Ontario is because their water treatment plant suffered a failure where some of this bacteria right here snuck through from the river into their drinking water, and they didn't notify the public in time. There were people in the town that drank contaminated water and died. This E. coli can cause significant sickness. Normally our water treatment plant filters that out of the water. Although sometimes in Lethbridge we'll get a boil water order in spring when the water is running very high, and basically the water treatment plant becomes overwhelmed. And then we let everybody in the city know, hey, you should boil your water for 5 minutes before you drink it. So why don't we get sick as often as we should? We shower, bathe, or drink the water? Well, it's because of our water treatment and sewage plants that for the most part get this and this and this out of the water so that we don't get sick when we drink it. Now, a quick look at the questions you're going to answer tomorrow in forms. You'll need some of those definitions: water quality, salinity, hard water. You're going to describe, keyword there is describe, the test that you can perform to find out whether or not you have hard water. What issues come up when it comes to water quality in these kind of situations when New Orleans is flooded? We'll look at question 4 in the next video that you'll watch tomorrow. So for tomorrow, answer questions 1, 2, and 3 in forms. And new video tomorrow. Have a great day.